so interesting. There's new fallout from Mexico's violent drug wars. A potential flood of immigrants that are seeking safety. At least they're saying that's what they need. They want asylum in the U.S. Well, last year, the U.S. granted asylum to just 62 Mexicans out of more than 2,800 who applied. The numbers are pretty similar over the past decade. All of that now could change. Last week, 30 Mexicans crossed into Texas asking for asylum from the U.S. because their town is overrun with violent drug gangs, and they're waiting to have their case heard. Could this be the first step in a new influx of asylum seekers? Is America's immigration system prepared to handle that? Francisco Hernandez, an immigration attorney, is joining us now, and John Fury is a legal policy analyst with the Center for Immigration Studies. Great to have both of you. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Colby.
John, how big a strain on the system could this place, and what are the chances that these 30 Mexicans can get asylum? Let me just put up on the screen before you answer for those at home what it takes to get asylum in the U.S. I made a full screen. You actually have to prove that there's a real risk of you going back. You must be unable or unwilling to return to your country of nationality because of past persecution or a well-founded fear of persecution on account of race, religion, nationality, membership in a particular social group, or political opinion. Yet these Mexicans are arguing they're just in the midst of this drug war, not necessarily that they have any beliefs that they're getting directly persecuted for.
That's exactly correct. And the main issue here is that under traditional asylum law, the persecution has to be coming from the government itself or a source that is acting on behalf of the government. And in this case, the government of Mexico is not persecuting individuals, and they are not condoning the activity of these drug gangs. So the first element of asylum law is not going to be met. And I think that this is a case that will not go anywhere, despite the efforts of some of the immigration attorney groups.
Yet, Francisco, they're here. They've made their case. They're awaiting a decision. We could see more of this if, in fact, this ends up being a situation that grants a right of asylum in the U.S. Do you agree?
Well, no, first of all, the sky is not falling. Let's take a deep breath and actually agree with Mr. Furry 100%. It's not going to happen. It is purely a scare tactic by anti-immigrant forces. It is not going to happen. 30 people is nothing in our system. And as you said, they're not going to meet the third class of membership in a social class, no matter which way you look at it. In 30 people right now, it's not a burden on the system. And quite frankly,
why weren't they turned away immediately and deported?
Well, because we live in a country that at least guarantees a process before you're denied any kind of right that you claim to have. It's a wonderful, it's really the only country in the world that has it. I think it's beautiful. And it's not a big strain, really. It's just we need to process it. They're not going to qualify. It's not going to open the floodgates. What it really is being used is a red herring, so we don't undertake the real debate about whether we need immigration reform in this country for the people that are already here. You know, there are children who grew up here since they were 6 months old.
Let me ask you about that, John, because 12 million or more are here, illegals, and this administration said that we would have an immigration reform policy in the first year of President Obama's office. Where do we stand with that?
Well, first off, the organizations that are pushing this idea of asylum law are, in fact, immigration attorney organizations. They are the ones that are trying to expand the definition of asylum so that really we get to a point where no one is denied asylum. That's the potential. I don't think they're going to be successful, but that effort is coming from the open border crowd.
So you think there is cause for concern in terms of a strain on the system, the inability to monitor the border if there's a real flood, because we know the drug situation, although the U.S. government is working with Mexico, is rampant. Right?
First and foremost, we do need security along our border. We need a commitment to immigration law enforcement across the board. Obviously, the United States is doing what it can to encourage Mexico to do a better job of law enforcement within its own boundaries. But this idea that somehow giving amnesty to every illegal alien in the country would somehow have an impact on our on the situation in Mexico, I think is somewhat dishonest. The reality is law enforcement of immigration laws is what we need.
All right, Francisco, we'll let you have the last word.
Okay, well, one has nothing to do with the other. The drug has nothing to do with our immigration issue. The government of Mexico is cooperating with the United States, and quite frankly, what we're seeing now is the turning lights on in the kitchen when the roaches are scrambling because we're getting effective. We're making progress. We're taking good steps since the Bush administration, quite frankly, and Calderon and Vicente Fox administration. This is the ugly part that was not seen before. This is a good step, as ugly as we have to endure it.
It'll be interesting to see what this judge decides. All right, I have to leave it there.
An amnesty will encourage more illegal immigration. That's the problem.
John, Francisco, great to see both of you.
Thank you.
Such an interesting topic,
Thank you, Mr. Ferry.
Trace.
Thank you.